So I'd like to just talk a little bit about this idea of Greenshoe, and I want to have a go at that from two aspects. Now, the first thing is, what is it? What is a Greenshoe? But the bigger question, the much bigger question is, why do we do that? Okay, so I'm going to try and give you some coverage on that. Okay, let me just check. All right, now the Greenshoe, what is it? First of all, now there's some text here. I don't know if I should show you because you're going to start reading it, but okay, never mind. So the Greenshoe is, or sometimes called Greenshoe, okay, but legally there is a term for it, which is the over allotment option, which is what they call it in newspapers and prospectuses, would allow the underwriter to sell more shares than what they advertise in the prospectus. Okay, typically it is 15%, and it is popular because it is a kind of legalized price stabilization that is allowed by regulators, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Okay, it's called a Greenshoe because the first company that did this, but this would be over a century ago, was actually called Greenshoe Manufacturing, so that they were in sports shoes. Okay, now what happens in a Greenshoe really is very simple, and so don't think it's complex. It isn't. It is not complex. Okay, now, so if there is an I bank in the middle, the Greenshoe means that if you were, let's say in your prospectus, you tell investors that you are thinking to issue 100 million shares, okay, 100 million shares with a 15% Greenshoe, okay. I'm now explaining the what part. What is a Greenshoe? So that means this company actually has the flexibility, okay, so the final number of shares will be greater than or equal to 100. It cannot be smaller, okay? So it'll either be, that will be the minimum. You must sell this much, and it will be smaller than or equal to 115 million. So there is some flexibility. Are you okay with that so far? Okay, so you don't know at the beginning what would end up happening, but you know that the final number of shares you end up issuing would be between those two numbers. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. So on day one, when the iBank is out there talking to a lot of clients, hundreds, thousands, millions of clients, okay, and they would place orders. So the iBank on purpose would sell 115 million shares. So they're going to collect orders for this amount of shares, even though, as far as the issuer is concerned, on day one, okay, on day one, they will just issue 100 million shares. Now, where's the extra going to come from? Well, that is more a logistical or operational issue, but normally the major shareholder will lend the other shares so that at least the settlement will not fail. Because if you imagine this is day one, first day of trading, okay? So the iBank has collected orders for 115 million shares. You don't have enough to go around because the company has only issued 100 million. So there's an extra 15 million that are needed. Otherwise, some transactions will fail. Now it won't fail because the iBank will borrow the extra from the issuer. Is everyone okay so far? Yeah? All right. I don't want to lose anybody, okay? Now, so here's the interesting thing. So the iBank knows that they have to return the 15 million shares to the major shareholder at some point in time. Okay, now there are two ways to do that. Number one is the iBank tells the issuer, oh, how about you just issue another 15 million back into your account. Now this is called exercising the Greenshoe. Exercising. This is effectively when the iBank is telling the client, please issue 115, okay, instead of 100. So they will issue 115, and then the extra 15 will then be given back to the issuer. Okay. Now, route number two is the iBank will buy from the market. Okay. So they do not ask the issuer to issue the extra 15. They just buy the extra from the market. Now, they don't always buy 15. Maybe they buy 5 or they buy 10, they buy 7, okay, but they buy some of it. Everyone is okay so far? Yeah? So it could be that out of that 15 million, they ask the issuer to issue 8, and then they buy 7 from the market. Now, so here is when I'm now slowly getting into the second question, which is the big one, which is why? What is this Greenshoe for? I missed. Just for fun? Why are we doing all this? Does anyone have an idea? So now you know what a Greenshoe is. Now you may be at the level of the average investor out there, the amateur level. So they know what the Greenshoe is. Oh, there's some flexibility between 100 and 115. Okay, isn't that good? Okay, wonderful. So we have some flexibility. Well, no, it's more complicated than that. You think you can guess? Now, the thing about the Greenshoe is this. So I just told you that on purpose, they sell more than, so this is the demand that they created. And if you don't count the shares that are being lent, the supply is actually 100. The demand is 115. So what's going on here? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. What's going on is the broker or the iBank, okay, they actually have the capacity, and capacity is the right word, okay? They have the capacity to reabsorb 15 million shares back from the market if they need to. Okay. Now you can call this capacity. Okay. You can look at it in another way. It's kind of ammunition. Ammunition. If that doesn't grab you, they have some buying power, don't they? Because they know they can buy 15% from the market and still be flat. Because they were not flat to start with, they were short. They were 15 million short. So even if you buy back 15 million, you are only flat. What is all this? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It is actually to give the iBank some buying power in case the IPO doesn't go well. So if it starts going the other way, if it starts to trade through the IPO price, okay, then they will try to come in and protect the IPO price. Let me show you an example of that. Okay, the best one, or one of the good ones that I have come across, is Prada. Now this happened some years ago. So Prada, the devil wears Prada, so they say. Okay, I've never seen the devil. You don't know Prada, right? Is where you do your shopping regularly, correct? Yes. No, just kidding. So Prada is a fashion house based in Milan, and they came to Hong Kong when? About 5 years ago, September 2012. And so there was a lot of expectation. Wow, Prada, okay, so trendy. And the IPO price was actually set at $39.50. And what you are seeing here is a price action chart of the first 2 days. So this is day 1, and this one is day 2. So it's kind of almost like hourly interval. So 1 hour, 2 hours, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. You can see that it was set at $39.50, and there was a little bit of a pop, POP, at the start, and then a bit of excitement round about, I don't know what time now, maybe somewhere around 11 o'clock in the morning. But that excitement soon sort of dissipated, and the price is traded. So it probably went up to $40. So this is in 10-cent increment, I think. Okay. So it went up to 40, and then very quickly it just came back down. Now, this is not how an IPO is supposed to look like. It's supposed just to take off like an aircraft, get into cruising altitude. This one never quite took. I think about it like an aircraft. Okay, this one never even left the ground, basically. Okay, and notice how when it comes back, every time it hits 39.50, it doesn't go any lower. Now, why is that? This is almost like a heartbeat. Like one of those hospital machines, and then you get some irregular blips. Okay, but it doesn't go below 39.50. Now, is there a rule? Is there a rule that says on IPO day you can't trade lower than your IPO price? No, there's no such thing. Okay, so when you see something like this, what do you think is happening? What is going on? Can you make a guess? So next time you see a graph like this on prices, and it's sort of bouncing around, well, not much, bouncing around a little bit, but it never goes below a certain level, okay? That means somebody is supporting that price of 39.50. Now, who's doing that? It would be the investment bank, okay? How can they do that? Well, I'll tell you how, because I already told you that because of this Greenshoe thing, they have created 15% of buying power if they need it. If they need it, okay? If the price just keeps going up and up and up and up, then you, as the iBanker or the trading desk, you don't have a lot to do. You just sit there and you read the newspaper, right? But because it's not going well, this is why they pay iBanks. This is called execution, ladies and gentlemen, right? And you don't know how much they end up buying. Okay? You can say two things. Number one is, if they keep buying and buying and buying, then the moment they have bought more than, or the moment they buy 15%, you have exhausted all your buying power, because at that point you will be flat. Okay, because then what happens? Then what happens is, so you sold 115, right? You bought 100, and then here you bought another 15. Oops, you bought 15. So now you are flat. So from the market, as far as the market is concerned, you have sold, or you have placed, probably a better word, you have placed 100, and this extra 15, where does that go? Well, it goes back to the issuer, because you borrowed from them, okay? So that's how it works. Is everyone okay? Now, I spent a lot of time explaining this, and I even recorded it, because I don't want to lose you in this. And Greenshoe is a kind of price stabilization. It is true, in the sense that if the IPO doesn't go well and it starts going south, you all know about north and south, it starts going south, then we are trying to protect the price. So it is stabilization in that regard, okay? In previous years, one very common misunderstanding with students, and you better listen up, because we likely will ask this question in the exam. Did you hear me? Yeah. One common misunderstanding. So I told you just now that it is stabilization in the sense that when there is downward pressure on the price, you try to support it. Okay, so that I call stabilization. Now, if the price goes all the way to the sky, you as an iBanker, what do you do then? Well, what you do is you turn around and you say to the issuer, well, congratulations, your IPO ran really, really well, but now we need you to issue an extra 15 million shares, sell it to us at the IPO price, okay? So we can pay you back. So the end result would be the iBank has bought 115 million at the IPO price, and they have sold 115 million at the IPO price. So they have no P&L. apart from the fees and the commissions. Okay? Now, what was I going to say? Yes, the common misunderstanding. Okay, so many, not many, but students sometimes they say that, well, when the price is reaching the moon and they issue more shares, correct so far, okay, the reason is they want to increase the supply to bring the price down. That's because that is incorrect, okay? They are not issuing more shares to bring the price down by increasing the supply. They issue more shares because the iBank sold 115. They only bought 100. So they need the extra 15. Okay? So try not to make that mistake. So anyway, I'm taking no chances. So this segment is recorded. Okay? So if I lost you just now, feel free to go home and review it if you want to. Okay? Is everyone okay so far? I hope I have explained quite clearly. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that the reason regulators allow this practice, which is very common, so it happens in Hong Kong, happens in the US, and a lot of other markets. So they allow you to, kind of put a floor or limited floor, FLOOR, on your IPO price. Now, the reason they allow for that is that it is quite important when you are doing an IPO, at least for the first 2 to 3 weeks, okay, that it doesn't trade below the IPO price. Otherwise, it's very embarrassing. And that is the reason behind all this. Okay, it's embarrassing for the issuer. It's embarrassing for the iBank. It means they priced it wrong. Okay, it's embarrassing for the issuer because investors will start to say, well, in that case, why did I bother with all that IPO stuff and reading your prospectus? I just go to the market and buy it. It saves me a lot of time and phone calls. Okay, so they do everything they can to try to protect it. Okay, the price. I mean, the IPO price level. They do everything they can, but sometimes they still fail. They can fail. There have been instances, and you probably know some of these. Okay, how does it fail? Well, it fails if the iBank keeps buying and buying and buying, and after they have bought all that they can buy, if you buy any more, it would go into your own book. So they can't do that. If they stop buying, then if there's still a lot of selling pressure, the price will trade through the IPO. It can. It has with some stocks. Okay. So there's no rule to say, although I must say 15 million is quite a lot of buying power. Okay. So that means if 15 million is somewhere around 1/6.5, if everybody has equal shares, and I know they don't, so that means if one person out of 6 is selling at the IPO price and no one in the market is interested, nobody in the market wants to buy at that price, and if this keeps happening and happening and happening, okay, then it will start to, then it could trade through. Okay, that's one way to think about it. Okay, everyone is okay. Anyone wants to make any Comments? Now, this is actually a very useful concept because some of you will one day become institutional investors or private investors or private bankers. So you should know not only what the Greenshoe is, right, but what is the motivation behind it. Okay?